Hello, and welcome to today's Industry Week webinar, Driving Down Quality Costs, Proven Techniques from the Manufacturing Floor, sponsored by Tulip. My name is Dennis Semeka, Senior Editor for Technology at Industry Week. I'd now like to welcome our speakers. Abigail Tingley, Development Manufacturing Engineer at AirBorn Incorporated, focuses on digital transformation and automation, and is currently assisting with the establishment of a digital factory at AirBorn. Abigail has been part of several successful Tulip deployments across the company and still has many exciting projects still to come. Matt Ronaldo, Director of Operational Excellence in the Fourth Industrial Revolution at VEKA, has spent his career empowering organizations to innovate through people-centered leadership and data-driven operations. In 2017, he joined VEKA Incorporated, a global vinyl manufacturing supplier, to build the company's fledgling quality department. Now serving as VEKA's first Director of Organizational Excellence, Matt's team has championed deployment of Tulip's technology to transform VEKA's manufacturing performance. And last but not least, certainly Humberto Silva, Customer Success Manager at Tulip, has 20-plus years experience in manufacturing, program management, and consulting. Humberto helps customers adopt and use Tulip to transform their operations. For more information about our speakers, please check the Speaker Details tab on your console. With that, Humberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you, Industry Week. And thank you, Matt, Abigail, and everyone that is joining us online. We'll get us started a little bit talking about the agenda for today. As you see here, we have 4 parts play. We're starting with what is next level quality. Then we're going to talk a little bit of the strategies for integrating next level quality into your existing quality program. We're going to then talk a little bit about the future and what is next based on the experiences of Abigail and Matt. And at the end, we're going to be opening a little Q&A for you guys to ask questions. But before getting started, I did wanted to set the stage here a little bit. One of the things we see in Tulip from the customer side, it's a lot of interest in quality. And let's be clear, quality is not a new topic, but one of the reasons why folks come to us and are looking to digital tools is certainly to improve and enhance their quality program. So the idea of this webinar is precisely show you what our 2 customers are doing specifically in this area. Again, with the goal of using digital tools and digital transformation to improve quality. This is what we call next level quality programs. So without further ado, we'll start with Abigail. Abigail, can you tell us a little bit more about your role, AirBorn, and a little bit of your journey in terms of quality?
Sure. So AirBorn is a manufacturer and engineer of electrical components, mainly serving military, aerospace, industrial, and space customers. Right now, we do have a pretty small digital transformation department. We're still pretty early on in our journey with that. My role is to kind of go through our various sites, our various manufacturing sites, identify opportunities for digital transformation, and then go ahead and implement them.
Great. Now, Matt, just briefly, again, a little bit about VEKA, a little bit about your role and digital transformation specifically.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name is Matt Ronaldo, and currently I work at VEKA. VEKA is a window designer and extrusion fabricator. We have 4 sites across the United States. We serve, the major window fabricators throughout North America. I've currently been inside of both quality and leadership roles for the last 15 years. Previously coming from the energy industry, where that's really where I cut my teeth, being a quality engineer, process engineer, data quality analyst, product quality owner. And then I was lucky enough to transition into VEKA and help take everything that I learned and understood from that advanced manufacturing into the building product realm. So thanks for having me.
Excellent, Matt. And for both of you, and again, to the extent that you feel comfortable with sharing, What were the challenges before you started this journey? What were the challenges that you were experiencing as responsible for quality or responsible for implementing quality when you started this journey?
Yeah, a lot. So probably like everyone else on here, right? We're all in quality, so it just is never ending. Right. We have to be insane people to be in our field. But I think the big one that kind of will be a theme through some of my conversations today, we specifically have an issue, which is labeling and barcoding. So it's a little bit embarrassing, but it's getting the right label onto the right part at the right time. And when that goes out the door and gets to a customer, that creates a lot of chaos, waste. And it's been our number one defect. So for us, that was really frustrating, not having a control system in place that assured what we were making, when we were making, and how we were making it. And that's just one example. It's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Because if you can't get that right, what else? What other escapes are we having? What other defects maybe are we missing? So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of our focus. Outside of that, I kind of saw the results. Similar, came into a company that was, fully paper-based, and, tons of hidden factories and black holes throughout our organization. So a lot to unpack there. But yeah, those were some of the challenges that we're very excited, and we have a lot of great movement in our transformation.
Great. Abigail, what about you? What about AirBorn? What were the things that you were tackled to solve when you started in this journey?
Yeah, I think definitely kind of same vein as Matt, and something I'm sure a lot of people on this call have experienced, where quality at times was subjective. And when you leave quality to be subjective, you see things like quality escapes, defects, and then obviously that leads to a lot of rework costs, scrap costs, or even, whenever we are tracking defects, most of the time it's been manual. So you have to look at the costs associated with that. And so kind of hardwiring quality checks into our manufacturing process so that, take it out of the operator's hands, make their lives easier, make the product better.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Abigail, for sharing. I'll move on to the next question, because again, I chatted a little bit at the beginning about what next level quality is from my point of view, using digital tools and using latest technology. But from your point of view, what do you think, or how would you describe next level quality for our audience?
For me, I would say a next level quality program is one where everybody at the company is bought in. Everybody realizes the part that they play in quality. It kind of shifts from quality being this department at the end of the line that you're trying to skirt around, trying to get around. And that shifts to the perspective that, like I said, everybody has a part to play. Quality is everybody's responsibility, because what, impacts the product impacts us as employees. So at the end of the day, it really just becomes part of the company culture, just integrated, that it's not, like I said, not something you're trying to bypass. It's something that we all are bought into and play a part in.
Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. I think this is a good question. So kind of like to piggyback a little bit on, what Abigail just mentioned, it's behavior-based for me. I think Tulip is a fabulous tool, right? But next level quality really is about the behavior of the company. And I really see the next level of quality is kind of like pulling together the three aspects of what you're physically doing, what you're digitally doing, and then the people and the personnel behind it. When those three become aligned, in what, I think the best part of Tulip is that can become a trigger inside of that to jumpstart the culture change. But to me, that's what next level quality is that the digital and physical match, and the personnel and the behavior is completely linked to it.
Very interesting. And in both cases, you guys are mentioning the people side, the organizational side that goes beyond just having the right technology. This is a great segue into the next question. Again, having spent time by having been a line manager in the past, I had all the excuses for quality. You're slowing me down. You're making the process boring. My process engineers can't work. That product looks okay. So there's always this inherent tension between manufacturing and quality, or it seems to be. Have you guys experienced the same? And if so, do you have any tips for the folks in the audience on how to diffuse this a little bit more?
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, you want me to go first? Sure. Yeah, I think it'd be cool if we could. I don't know if we can do surveys on the spot or not, but I just want to know I wonder how many people here feel like they're the quality police or their department's the quality police, right? So kind of going back to your question, that's how I always joke about it here is that, it's all about quality catching production. How do we catch their defects? How do we get that? But going back to your question, that to us, that created a lot of conflict, right? So our operations team was trying to get as much material out the door, and our quality team was trying to catch as much bad material as possible, right? And again, that goes into those behaviors. So each team was trying to do what they thought was best, but it wasn't aligned or working together. So that's kind of I think that's kind of typical. I'm sure, Abigail's probably will touch on that as well. And probably everyone who's watching this, it's a constant battle. So it's really the goal is how do we unpack that? How do we both serve the same goal? And how do we set more clear expectations for who does what, when, why, and how inside of our process? Abigail, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. For us, our quality in the past in places has largely relied on tribal knowledge. Operators that have been here for 10, 15, 20 years that have been building the product and, they build it completely different than the person beside them who builds it different from the person beside them, which obviously leads to inconsistency and a lot of quality issues. And we've definitely seen some resistance from the operators in building in these quality controls. It can be seen as inconvenient, kind of as Matt was saying, like quality police. It can be seen as inconvenient. And we had a lot of tension, I think, where manufacturing wanted speed and quality wanted accuracy. And kind of like how Matt was saying there at the end, they're just bringing the two together and show that you can be accurate and consistent without sacrificing a ton of time. And, on the back end, you're saving a lot of time because you're building the product, you're manufacturing the product correctly the first time, rather than going back and reworking or having to scrap it and start all over. So kind of a show and tell of blending the two together to ease those tensions.
Got it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And did you mind one more thing? I love what you said about the tribal knowledge, right? And again, another thing that we experienced, and I remember having a Post-it on my computer. I think I still might. It's in my office somewhere. It just said Zane's brain to the production floor. Right, because he was the guy that I would always go to understand how to do it right, or I don't want to say that, but you know what I mean? He was the one with the tribal knowledge, and I was like, man, if we all thought this way, how do we get his brain? And that's part of what we've been doing in our journey is unpacking that. How did he get his knowledge? How do we document his knowledge? And then how do we digitize and transform that into our system? So I really loved when you brought that up because I couldn't agree more. I'm sure a lot of other people feel and experience that same thing.
Excellent. Matt, and I will be remiss if I don't mention that again. If we see your title, you remove the director of quality and you call yourself director of operational excellence and for industrial revolution, and that was very deliberate, correct? Can you explain a little bit more about that specific decision?
Yeah, and I think this goes back to part of that earlier question as well. Too is what's the next level of quality? So when I came in and joined my company. Quality was detection heavy, right? Extremely detection heavy. Everything was about how do we find the bad part? How do we find the bad part? How do we quarantine material, right? But that's not quality. That's a part of quality, right? So what I started recognizing in very early on with our company is as we had, quote, the quality police that was reporting into me, I was also interfacing with our customers, right? So what is that voice of the customer? What are they experiencing? So as I'm interfacing with that customer and recognizing that their pain points are real, right? I'm trying to relay that back to operations and say, hey, how do we address these pain points? Let's fix them, right? I'm sure everyone here has done it, right? You guys have a kappa. Here's your kappa. Here's your car. Here's your improvement plan. And it's being pushed over, kind of thrown over the fence, and it just wasn't moving the needle for what we need to do, which is serve the customer, right? So we weren't moving that needle, and that the mindset here was quality is about detection. So what I ended up doing was changing that thought process and, bringing in process engineering for the first time inside of our company to be that bridge between, the voice of the customer, quality, and operations. And now they became the ones who owned the corrective preventative actions while they pulled operations into the fight, right? And that's kind of that mindset of going from a quality specific mindset to an organizational excellence mindset. And it doesn't stop at just products, right? We're trying to, and again, I'm trying to push that envelope and that thinking of our business processes, new product introductions, as much upstream, APQP. How do we get upstream as best we can, and not just be at the end of the line at the dock trying to catch bad product, because that's tons of waste internally that we need to eliminate. So that's kind of that was the mindset and the thought process. And luckily enough, the leadership team was excited to transition and think that way and move that way.
Excellent. And then again, I advance the question because I think that speaks to the specific point of the different approach. Abigail, in your case, can you tell us a little more of when, based on the challenges and the resistance of manufacturing, you realized, well, the traditional way is not going to cut it here. I need to do something different, or we need to do something different?
Yeah, we had a lot of those moments, I think, with our first Tulip deployment. It was a bit of a behemoth of a project, and it was a very it was a big project, had a lot of eyes on it, and it was very important. It was a new product that we had, we were starting to make the process for right around the time that we started our journey with Tulip. So we kind of built the process as we built our apps within Tulip and as we learned Tulip. And I think it wasn't so much of the old way isn't working anymore, we need to change something. I think it was more of look at all we can do with this new digital tool. And if we can do it, why not? And we really started to see the benefits from that. And then that just kind of spread to, okay, like maybe we need to put this other places too, and look at how we're doing our other processes. And there is a better way.
Interesting. So if I rephrase what I heard is you're not saying we're moving out from the old approach, we're just augmenting the old approach and making it more powerful by incorporating more things in it. We're not replacing it, just making it better.
Right.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So that actually is a great segue for our second section, which is, okay, we already identify digital technologies. We have the tool. We know the challenges. How do we implement? And the goal of this section is for you guys to just walk us a little bit into the best practices and the things you already implemented. And also tell us where not to go, right? If you have any tips in what to avoid, I think the audience will greatly appreciate those. So again, whomever wants to take this first, how do you successfully push? And again, the word push here is maybe a little strong, but how do you incentivize the operations floor to adopt digital tools or change the front line?
I think this is a really great question because it kind of stresses that it really is all about getting the people on the floor on board. And getting them to accept and follow this process that you are trying to put in front of them. And like I said earlier, we have experienced some pushback and some there are operators that will take it personally. They see it as they think that I'm saying they're not doing their job well enough, or I'm trying to replace them. And that's really not it. It's about showing them that we are trying to augment what they do. We're trying to make their lives easier so that they can, have an easier job, so they want to show up to work because they're proud of what they're putting out and they know that they're putting out a quality product. So one of the deployments we had was, I believe it was our second Tulip deployment at a different facility. We experienced a lot of that operator pushback. It was one of our larger tribal knowledge processes. So not only were we documenting it, we were documenting it in Tulip. So we had all these different integrations and really just kind of did a whole overhaul of this process. So got a lot of pushback there. And then what we started to see was, as new trainees were coming in, new employees to start building on this line, the ones that had been there for 10, 15, 20 years that weren't really happy about this new way of manufacturing were going to the engineers and saying, hey, can we run Tulip, because we need to train this guy and this is going to be the easiest way to do it. Which was really great. It was a really awesome thing to hear and see. So it was definitely a big perception change as they started to use it and started to see the benefits out on the floor. And, Umberto, you said about anything maybe to not do is, when you're getting operator feedback as you're building out these digital solutions, which you absolutely should be getting operator feedback, they should be part of the process with you. Don't just listen, actually implement what they're saying if it's feasible. If it's not, explain why, have the back and forth, have the discussions, and really work. They're the ones at the end of the day that are building it, so their feedback should really take a part in the digital solution. And then that also helps with their buy-in, because they helped build it. They're proud of it too. So we've had a lot of success with that methodology.
Great. Thanks for that question. Thanks for the answer. Sorry, Abigail.
I wanted to touch on the last part that Abigail said, which was, that speed of that customer, of the operator feedback or frontline feedback. That's huge, right? Because then they feel heard, and everything's about feeling heard. But yeah, kind of jumping back to the beginning of that question, and jump actually to the question prior to it. So building off of what you have is really important to the success. So recreating the wheel does not help. And again, something I wouldn't do is completely change your process or how you're doing it from a full 180. It will create resistance on the production floor. So really understanding and building off of what's successful. And I'm sure everyone's used these terms like Gemba walks, but pulling your people in. And I'm going to kind of be a stickler on this, because like I said it before, Tulip is the tool, right, for the change. But to really implement, to really push digital solutions, you have to pull the people in, sit down and do some of the boring work. My team is not allowed to build applications now without having a process map completed, control plan completed, and a charter. And part of the charter is saying, what is the impact of this application and what's it going to do? And if you don't have those things, it doesn't matter what you roll out. You're just going to roll out shiny toys that are shiny toys, right? They're not going to have a value. So understanding your value, building and doing the control plans, the process maps, all that IE work, all that, that's the hardest stuff. Once you do that, building's a lot easier. You can go to market, to the floor faster with it. And then it's stickier because they helped you build the process map. They helped you tell what the problems were. And now they're part of the solution, kind of tying back to what Abigail said. So yeah, that's the approach we were taking. And I think that's where we found our stickiest apps, where when we did that work and did it well, those were the apps that stuck the best and had the biggest impact on what we did.
Great. So just to summarize, when the operators feel they're being incorporated in the conversation, when whatever processes existed were not demolished, but also augmented, and when there's that back and forth, you're making it somehow central to the operation, so they feel like they're part of the conversation, not being told what.
Yeah. And to touch on that is, like, some of our best ideas come from those conversations. We have people on the floor, like, we sometimes don't realize how intelligent they are. we've had people saying, I've been wanting to do this for years. I've been wanting to see this for years. I wanted to do my job better for so long. And they never felt they had that voice or a tool that could help build that. And to me, that was like one of my favorite parts of this journey, is hearing all these people with really great ideas who are now completely bought in. And someone who came to work maybe frustrated is now coming to work feeling like they're part of that team. And I can't emphasize that enough. That's the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. So diving into like more specifics into your operations, can you share a couple of examples of where you incorporated quality into your process? And I think, Abigail, I have a slide here that you can guide us through.
Yeah. So this is a snapshot of one of our apps out on the production floor. So there are 3 springs in this build, and our customer had an issue with their previous supplier where they would install the incorrect spring for that step in the process. We found out during kind of our like early mapping out how this process was going to look. We found out that the weight difference is enough for that scale to detect. And so what we did was, at each step of the process before the operator is to install whichever of the 3 springs, we have them put it on the scale, and the scale will obviously weigh it and then send that weight back to Tulip into the app. There's logic behind the screen that if it's within a certain range, that dot you see there on the bottom right will turn red. The okay, not okay will display a message that they have the correct correct spring, and then they are able to move on to the next step. If they were to get, not the correct weight reading, they're not able to continue, and they would either, realize that they accidentally picked up the wrong spring, or if they think that it is the right spring, call engineering. We do whatever needs to be done, but they're not able to continue. So they stop before they're able to install the incorrect part. So that's just one example of a quality check that we have baked into our manufacturing process.
Great. Thanks, Abigail. Matt, is there any examples you can talk us through?
Yeah, sure. I think for us, the most important one, going back to solving our problem for our barcode errors and our labeling issues that I mentioned at the beginning of this, was really that our physical and digital weren't matching. So in order to solve that, the biggest success we had was when we connected into the ERP system. So essentially what we were able to do is flip the script on how we thought about our product. And instead of having, previously it was innocent until proven guilty, right? Like I mentioned, I'm going to stick with this theme about the quality police. So, right, the quality police are trying to run out and find bad product. And what we want to do is have flipped that. So production was able to just have material fly right through into the warehouse as sellable parts. Even though we had administrative quality checks and we had a quality manual, we had all these paper-based things that we were supposed to do. So we flipped that script and we made it so tying Tulip into the ERP system, it automatically non-conforms the material at the birth of the material. Then it creates the quality check. So similar to what Abigail just showed, right? So checks like that now pop up at the appropriate routing step. And if your check is out of compliance, it will automatically non-conform that material, or keep it non-conformed, I should say. And so that way, if that material if ever were to move, it's a non-sellable part, so it doesn't come out the door. And one of the reasons that's really important for us is we're a 24/7 manufacturing company. And the way we work is we have these large dies that go onto the end of an extruder and we pump out material. Well, that one die can make up to 12 different SKUs of product. So as that die is online and you're going from SKU 1 to SKU 2, if you don't have that quality check that assures that your order has changed, the requirements for that part has changed. Maybe it's going from a white to a gray to a beige, right? So you have a new quality check, you have a new part you're making, a new SKU. It kicks off a new first piece inspection or first article, right? Every time that order changes now, forcing the operator to do his quality check, and then we're confirming that the appropriate material to the appropriate order is being made. And then we have our subsequent QC checks behind that. But tying it into the ERP to me was huge. And like that, going to that level of control and, getting that buy-in. And you take, like we talked earlier, all that frustration and buy-in from the operators, they hated when they had to rework material.
Right.
So when we told them this can reduce their rework, right? And we tie it in and we're offsetting and doing a couple more quality checks, saving them a ton of work, was huge for us. So yeah, that's our example.
Great. So incorporating in the process, upstreaming the process as seamless as possible.
Yeah. Yep. Upstream in the process. And I think that's a good theme, is quality is not just catching bad product. Kind of like what Abigail mentioned, we're actually, launching into an upstream process where our dyes are actually manufactured and stored before they come out to the production line. They're now having quality checks. So they don't produce the part, right? But we're inspecting the metal. We're making sure that those checks, and if that's not completed, it can't get added to the order.
Right.
Right. And that's something that we've had in the past where I would flag a tool and I would say, please don't run this tool online. I'd email it out, right? Hey, please don't do this. I'm sure we all do that, right? We email out our MES all the time, right? How do we email this to you? Please read my email. Well, no one read my email. The tool came back out online and we had a defective part, right? And that's where putting that upstream has helped us a lot to reduce waste and defects, especially reoccurring ones that are easily identified.
Great. Now, shifting gears a little bit, again, I know, Matt, you mentioned this a couple of slides ago, and at the end of the day, all we do has to have an impact on the business. But from your point of view, what are the most important metrics that next gen quality should care about?
So that's a great one. And tying it to an earlier question as well, I think you need to understand what your high level KPIs are. So what is it that's important to your company, right? So you got to start there because your boss is your boss, your company is your company. You got to make sure you're hitting that. But then I would say is your next tier down starts to get into, specifically in digital transformation, as I mentioned earlier, what is it you're trying to accomplish, right? So, I think if you could jump to the next slide a little bit, right? So we have a series of application suites that have a purpose statement behind it. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier. We have a charter for everything that we launch. Part of that charter is a metric, right? We're not releasing an app just to release an app. We were releasing an app because we wanted to drive down the number of occurrences and escapes that we were having with our barcode issue. So you can kind of see in 2021, we were producing 1.5 per shift or per day, sorry. That builds up over time. These are just the escapes. That's not even how much we were catching internally, right? Catching internally is just, was massive. So as what we did was in 2022 is really where we started our digital journey. That was our first step of digitization. It's really where we did a small segment of Tulip to help with administrative awareness. In 2023, we were able to roll that out across without it connected to the ERP system. And then in 2024, we connected it to our ERP system. And you can kind of see that downward trend, right? Where we were able to say, here's our key metric, here's what's important, and is our efforts impacting that? So it leaves us down to that last one, which is a 0.2, which we have a 2025 project in place that we believe is going to eliminate that 0.2. And this defect will go from one of our highest rated to almost non-existent through this journey. Now, we'll probably talk about this later. Speed, right? This was our very first attempt with Tulip, right? I think if we were to launch today, we're going from 2021 to probably 2024 in 6 months, right? If we had that buy-in, if we had the number of stations, if we were, we had some things that we learned. Like I said, we have to do the boring work up front. So learning all those things, if we knew what we knew today, it would be a lot faster. But that's part of the journey, right? Is understanding that and then having those metrics. So, yeah, thanks for letting me talk about that.
Abigail, any from your point of view, any two key metrics that you've been following through and then that you think are key to measure the success of your program?
Yeah, not as specific as Matt's, but I would say the two that I have seen that from my perspective are two of the most important. One being throughput, because when a product gets built right the first time, because you have this quality baked into your manufacturing process, it's less likely to get stopped at final inspection. So you're increasing your throughput, and obviously more money is a good thing. And then the other one I would say would be scrap. It is something that AirBorn works really hard to minimize as much as we can. And by implementing these quality checks, we have seen decreases in scrap in the deployments that product lines that we've had. Definitely a significant decrease in scrap and rework. Again, just making sure it's built right the first time, and it's all good to go by the time it leaves the line.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Abigail. And you tied me up perfectly to this slide. Again, I'm just going to take a second and put my plant manager, financial controller hat here and tie this all for the audience. Again, the title of this webinar is Driving Down Cost. And Abigail made a point very, very strong here. In manufacturing, there's basically two levers we have, right? So we increase revenue through increasing throughput, or we reduce costs through reducing labor, material, and overhead. And so the point we want to drive home here is that any investment, any initiative you have has to be tightly aligned to one of these levers. So you, at the end of the day, can, as Matt say, go back and prove that the program was effective. I have a quick example here. And again, we have more in our website, and we also ran a webinar on how to build business cases. But specifically, and this is, again, something that is relatively related to quality, you can see here, as Abigail mentioned, we have rework, we have failed inspections, unit to scrap. And so for the most part, these are measures that you can actually easily tie back to the results of your digital program. And you don't necessarily need to get to solid numbers, but you directionally need to prove if this is getting results, if it's moving the right needles. So again, the whole point is, as Matt mentioned, the shiny new technology is not necessarily the solution. We need to prove that there's a result going behind it. The last thing I'll show, it's, again, this is from our point of view. These are things we have seen from our customers in the field. It's just an example of some of the improvements we've seen. But the point I want to drive home here is that none of this is effective if there is no bottom line that is impacting your business. And so just please make sure as you go along this journey that you're keeping that in mind. We're almost getting into our last section here. And this is more of a philosophical section in the sense of the way I see it, continuous improvement and digital transformation are journeys that quite never end. You can be advanced and there's always something new to explore and more things you can do. And so in terms of what's next for you guys, where do you see the future in terms of the next quality program? What is getting you excited? Are there any technologies or anything you're seeing that you want to get your hands on?
I'll jump in real quick. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's really hard when Tulip is as powerful as it is to be having other technologies that you're getting excited about, because you can. I always joke and say, like, if I think of it, I know my Tulip team is developing it, right? We can make it happen. So we are excited to partner with some other hardware, some vision systems, some RFID systems. But I think the thing we're most excited about is we're starting to develop Tulip's frontline Copilot to consume our 2D part drawings, which is going to help us automatically update our quality tables or our source of truth where our quality specs come from. So that's going to really change the game on our new product introduction and change management, that once we review it as a group, we upload and submit it through Copilot, it will automatically update our tables, which will allow us to go live at that update. So we won't have to worry about someone missing a specification update here or and that to me is really powerful. It's going to reduce massive amount of administrative work. And I'm sure other people in this call have seen it before where you can have misses because someone updated a product and maybe they didn't manage it well enough, and it snuck through. So controlling upstream like that is going to be huge for us, and we're excited to use Copilot in that manner. Abigail?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like I'm echoing Matt here. We're kind of in the same deal where, whenever we're identifying these new opportunities, we're not really looking at other technologies. It's kind of, okay, how can we get Tulip to do this? Because we know that there's a way. So as far as what's next for our quality program, we're going to be looking to implement some of our, some quality checks into some of our, I don't want to say more simple processes. What we've used it for now have been these really big projects. We haven't really gotten to put it in a product family at every station to do these quality checks. And, a lot of our product families are built across different manufacturing sites. So I'm really excited to start getting some insight into more of our day-to-day across sites, some of these smaller wins, so to speak. And also very excited to try Copilot. Unfortunately, because of the cloud environment that we're in, we don't have access to Copilot yet. But I'm really hoping to have that in the future. The main thing I want to do with it is chat with PDF. I wanted to make our documentation more accessible to the floor, easier to search, and just simpler to understand, because a lot of the time these technical documents can, contain a lot of technical jargon. They can be really long, and it can get to the point that operators, instead of, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to go in the middle of my job and go try to find that right document and read through 30 pages to try and find the answer that I may or may not understand. So just to make their lives easier and kind of bring the answers to them instead of having them have to go search for it, and hopefully they find it.
Great. Thanks. And then almost going through our last question. Again, you've been through this journey, you're learning a lot. If you had to do this again, what would you change? What would you do different?
Oh man.
I think, Matt, you have this to explain a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I think that's just such a big question, right? No, I think I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. If I were to go through this journey again, what's up on screen right now, this is a little example of our control plan. We kind of landed on this. I had so I've previously built ERP systems, and at the end of the ERP, it almost spits out a control plan for you. And I was thinking that way as we were kind of developing Tulip, right? I was waiting for Tulip. I think even said to my account manager, I'm like, when are you guys going to create a control plan app or this or that? And then I recognized, I was like, wait a minute, I'm thinking about this backwards. So let me flip the way I'm thinking. I'm going to build a control plan, which means I can build it how I want. I don't have to be tied into the architect of this out-of-the-box ERP system or out-of-the-box MES system. So once I got that mindset right, we then started ripping through our work, because we were like, oh, well, now we this makes sense. We know what we're trying to accomplish, how we want to accomplish it. And we weren't guessing anymore. We weren't poking or hoping on anything. So to me, it's if I could go back in time, and I guess my advice for everyone here is this mindset here, the way this is laid out, really helps us in our company. So when we build, we're going, it's sticking faster. We're developing faster, and it's being adopted faster and stronger. So that's what I would say, is recognizing that in my own head. I would put that into myself a couple years ago.
Abigail, again, advice to your younger self?
Yeah, definitely for me, I think the one that really sticks out is making sure that the process that you are trying to digitize is ironed out and fully documented before you start trying to digitize it. And a big part of that is understanding any differences between what is currently documented and what's actually going on out on the floor, because they are not always the same thing. So, like Matt said earlier, like the Gemba walks, go out there, see what is actually going on. Does it meet the documentation? If not, where's the difference? Do we need to compromise? Do we need to update our documentation? Do we need to reinforce to the floor the process? And from there, once you really kind of have your ducks in a row, it's going to make your digitizing a lot easier. Otherwise, it can get pretty messy pretty quick. And you kind of just have this whole scramble of this digital thing. And then, well, it doesn't work on the floor because of X, Y, and Z, because, didn't do your research first, or it's not documented properly. So yeah, just definitely make sure that everything is documented. You know what actually needs to be done, how the process actually needs to flow. And you'll see a lot more benefit from digitizing a process if you approach it that way.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Abigail. Again, just to close, and I'll be remiss, and I realize some of the audience members don't. We were talking about Copilot, and some of the audience might not know what Copilot is. So very briefly, it's a feature that it's on the Tulip platform that basically lets you use AI LLMs within, in a secure form within your apps, and read through and go through data that you have in your apps and tables. So again, it's as everything else, like the AI is the latest and greatest. This is just a clear, effective way to incorporate AI into the application. So again, we're almost getting to the end. I just wanted to make sure that we reiterate the points that we talked through today. So next level quality best practices, I'm going to read through those, and then we're going to get ready for your questions. The first one, it's again, we talked about this, align operations and quality. So come together to understand the key metrics, but tie this, please tie this to factory financials, to a bottom line, and to, again, a reduction in cost or increase in revenue. Smashing the vegetables. This is a phrase we took from Abigail. Again, this is a more of a way to incorporate the process and the quality into the process. Again, buy-in, making sure you are hearing the operators, making sure the processes are clear. Shift the mindset. Again, quality first. Guilty until proven innocent. That what Matt said. Is try to flip the script. Don't be the quality police, or make sure that everybody's working towards the same goals. And again, create a culture of continuous improvement. Right. So not only having the tools, but empowering folks to come back, make comments, make feedback, and incorporate their thoughts. Because at the end of the day, all of us that have experience on the floor know that in some cases the operators are the ultimate experts. All right. With that said, it's Q&A time. So feel free to post your questions in the chat.
Thank you, Humberto. This is Dennis again. So we'll begin our Q&A session. Humberto, how long does it typically take for companies to start seeing the benefits of implementing next-gen quality practices?
I can answer that, but I would rather have the folks that have done it answer it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So kind of as I mentioned on that slide earlier, talking about the escapes, and going back to the theme of like how you think about your applications and what you're trying to solve. If you do your work up front, you can see benefit to your operating floor within days and weeks, and to the holistic project within months. But it all depends on how you're prioritizing, how you're chunking out what you're rolling out into the bigger picture. So as I mentioned earlier, we had this 2-year journey to get from our current defect rate to 0 defects, right? And I had to, even though we saw early on results, right, I still had to make sure I was communicating. So, tons of communication to the leadership team on, where you are with that, because they're always going to want more, right? How do I get my results faster? You said you were going to solve the problem faster. So there's always going to be that end. That's going to be part of your job to manage. But if you can strategically set expectations, we're already seeing our impacts. We're seeing more impacts month 2, et cetera. So having that right mindset, you can see impacts extremely quick. as long as you do your upfront work and you really set the boundaries of this is what we're solving and how we're solving, and then you can clearly communicate on it. You can see benefits fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar experience where like the initial was very quick. To give a brief example, we had robots that we implemented or tied into Tulip. So when an operator got to a step in the process, the robot would point to the material that they needed for that step in the process. And that was huge. Early on, just a quick quality check, like not really check, but direction, I guess. And then, same thing Matt was saying, like just keep iterating on it, keep having some of these small wins, because even if the overarching implementation is a big win, you're going to have those smaller things as you go. So like he said, keep communicating it and just keep pushing forward to keep making it better.
Okay, next question. How effective would this be for a job shop that runs thousands of different products a year and each of them have their own specs and requirements?
I can kind of speak to that. AirBorn is a high mix, low volume company for the most part. We have a lot of customization and, very similar, just probably thousands of different part numbers. The way that we have figured out for now, at least, to kind of work around different parts that require different aspects to them is to kind of create a core process wherever you can. So, if you have a product family that the base is similar, you can create a core app or apps for that, and then build kind of like apps off of that. So you can look at, if this specific part in the part number says that I need to do it this way, have Tulip route, to an app specifically for that, and then build in your quality checks based off of that, but still have your core quality checks.
So this next question is a two-parter. So first, are you looking for ways to improve the creation of work instructions and deploying on the manufacturing floor as a way to improve quality? And if you are, what are the pain points you are experiencing?
I'll jump in because so this is what I'll say. My mindset is I don't use Tulip for work instructions at all. I want to use Tulip to help control our product. So I'm kind of speaking on both sides of my mouth at the same time. Our goal is to set up work instructions that tie to the ERP in the conformance of our product. So it's walking you through your quality check when you have to do your quality check, not just having a work instruction to go back and reference or in front of you while you're doing your work. So I guess what I would say to that question is, and kind of going back to what we said earlier, understanding the process, whether it's a job shop or like in my case, like our extrusion halls, understanding that process, getting that mapped out right, updating that work instruction / process map, and then building your application around that. And if you have the ability to tie that into your ERP system, that's where you can have that mindset of like guilty until proven innocent. And if they don't do the work instruction, they don't get a good part. And that's kind of that little, that's kind of how you hold them accountable to the work instruction. So that would be my push is like think a little bit bigger than just work instruction. Tie it to your quality specs, tie it to the conformance of your part, and you're going to see a big change in how people do what they do.
Next question. What strategies have been used to influence the organizational leadership that investment needs to be made to achieve next level quality?
We'll let you take that one, Matt.
Yeah, I'll jump in this one too. So I think the most political way I can say it is you need to figure out how to create urgency, right? So in my case, I created urgency with my leadership team through the need of our customers, right? So by leveraging the voice of the customer, I was able to create a need. Because sometimes, as much as we want to quantify everything through dollars and cents, we also have how we are perceived by our customers. That is just as important. And at the end of the day, you can't quantify it, because if a customer leaves, you have revenue and dollars lost. So leveraging that customer expectation, customer need and want was one of the ways I was able to get some funding so we could figure out how to utilize and implement inside of Tulip.
This will be our last question. So how do we ensure that the processes we digitize and the problems we are working on are the right processes and problems to be working on? And we can rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic, but the ship is still going to sink.
I think that's a great question. To be upfront and honest, it's something trying to figure out how exactly to prioritize our investments in digital transformation is something that I am still working on figuring out exactly the way I've been going about it. There are some great tools online, both from Tulip and not from Tulip. Different matrices with scoring. If you want to do it, a very quantitative way. I think something that's really important to do, and on top of those, is it can get a little hectic, but bring in as many people as you can into the conversations from top down in the organization. Start having those conversations about what matters the most to people, what makes sense, and just kind of bring, engineers, engineering managers, bring in the CIO if you need to, the CTO, cybersecurity, IT, have those conversations and start to define where your company is at, who's ready for digital transformation. That's a big one that I think a lot of people look over sometimes, is there's such thing as digital transformation readiness. And there might be sites or departments that want the shiny new tool, but maybe they just aren't in a place where they're ready for that yet. And there are, again, great resources online to assess digital transformation readiness. And so that's a really good place to start. And yeah, just keep talking, find the tools online, quantify it however you can. At least that's how I'm going about it. I don't know if it'll work out yet. Ask me in a year. But that's
and
kind of been our approach.
My sense for that one was it's focus on the business problem. Find the business problem, then find the process that is tied into the major business problem. Because even if you're solving for the biggest business problem, you're going to ensure that at least you're doing what is the most important thing. If you have to go back to the drawing board, nobody's going to question that decision.
Right, absolutely. And I'm glad you made that point, Umberto, because whenever you start to bring in, at least in my experience, when you start to bring in, as Matt's been saying, kind of like the shiny new tool, everybody wants it. Everybody has a use case for it that they can think of. Doesn't necessarily mean that is where the business is hurting the most at the moment. It's perfectly fine to, keep it in mind. But yeah, definitely attack the big business problems first.
That is all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank Abigail Tingley, Matt Rinaldo, Umberto Silva, and our sponsor Tulip for today's presentation. On behalf of Industry Week, we hope you have a productive remainder of the day. Thank you for joining us.